I love your background, Paula. Where is that? Good morning, Colleen. Or afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, yeah. It's like, is it morning?
Where's your background, Paula? I can't hear you. You're on mute.
There, now I'm unmuted. Green River Reservoir.
Oh, Green River. Okay, it looks like the pictures. I see sometimes.
That's where the canoe launch is, and we walk in there.
Beautiful.
You should put Paula in the interview seat one of these days.
I'll put her in the lineup. I just need you guys to tell me, and then I put them in the list. I mean, selfishly, I've got a list, but you guys want to hear from.
She's done about it damn near everything.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Elaine, I have my Vasa shirt on.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I may or may not do a workout on it today.
I did one. I have a bench with the stretchy cord, so it's not the proper Vasa, but my triceps are still sore from 2 days ago.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. I've got to jump into that too.
Good morning, Molly. Marley, Janine.
How do I put this on mute? Because I have that 8:45.
Jamie!
Oh, hey. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
God, Jamie's here.
Jamie's coming. She's starting.
She's sideways, but she's here.
I'm sideways?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Is it better?
I should have taken a screenshot before she fixed that.
Does this not work? Yeah, put it in the cup. How do I put this on mute, though?
On your screen, you can see, or if you can
Mark's
see.
sideways now too.
Jamie's another one who'd be put in the chair.
Can you show me? No. I've never done it with the phone. What's the problem? I need to be on mute.
You want me to mute you? I can mute you, Jamie.
Yeah, if you don't mind, and Shannon, you'll laugh at this because, of course, I got an 8:45 put on my calendar this morning. So this is my first time doing it on my phone because it's been blocked from work. There's security issues. So help me. It's just saying wait.
iPhone. All right. Well, we'll look forward to chatting with you on the 28th then. Thanks for dropping it. I'm muting you now. There we go. All right. One more minute before we do our breakout. Any interesting news?
Nope.
Nope. I think for our topic, what was that?
Just say, let's see, I'm home, I work, go to sleep, walk, repeat. Not much new.
Yeah. Well, we'll look forward to talking to John on the 21st. So it's fun guests. All right. So I think, Colleen, just because you haven't been here before, what we usually do at 5 after is we just do a little meet your lane mates. And so I break you up into groups and I give you a topic that you could choose to use or not use when you meet your lane mates. But today I was going to do what's your favorite thing to feed for all swimmers. I figure that's something that we can relate to each other about. But just a note, a little intro from me. My name's Shannon Keegan, and I've been marathon swimming this is my 10th year, and I've had a couple kids in there. So it's in and out of the community, but I'm really loving this forum as a way to connect with people. And if there's ever anybody wants to reach out to me, you have ideas, or you want to ask different questions, or you have ideas for people that you want to talk to, let me know, because I want this to be something that we are all contributing to and a part of. And Colleen was requested to be, I can't remember who requested you. I haven't done a good job of keeping track of who tells me to talk to who, but I'm really excited to talk to you today, Colleen. But we'll do our breakout really quick, and then we'll come back at about 20 till, and we'll talk to Colleen. Let's see. All right, I'll see you in about 5 minutes. Good morning, Diane.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good.
We already jumped into our rooms, so you can chat with me.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I am sorry to be late. Bridget says she can't get into Zoom. Let's see what she says. Can you send the ID? She says so. She might. So I just kind of clicked on whatever it was.
Yes.
Yeah, on the site. So. I'm.
Can you turn your camera on, Diane? You don't have to, but I'd love to see you.
Oh yeah. Sometimes I
found you.
Hi.
Thanks, Diane.
Oh, here
I don't know why this is such a problem for me.
I find it on the site, so it's on the site, the website. So,
but when I click on it, I get a blank screen. I get a Safari won't let me join that screen. It never works. I don't know how I ever find you guys.
okay.
Thank you. Hi. How y'all doing?
Well, tonight, no, we have there's a few of us who have organized a discreet little swim. We are not talking about this on the whole group or anything, but I'm going to have a chance to swim tonight, so that'll be cool.
Wonderful.
And I hope I still remember how.
It's like riding a bike.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I think that it's one of these things that comes back to you, and I would say like riding a bike, except that I don't ride bikes, so.
Fair enough. Yeah. I always like to start with floating, which is hard if it's chilly. But
I do I do a little bit of breaststroke, and this is why I don't like to wear a wetsuit when I I prefer to, and so I wait until the temperature gets to at least 60, and then it's chilly, but it's doable, and I go out and just do some breaststroke, and I can't do that with a wetsuit on. It's like, and so I find that it's harder to get used to cold water when I'm wearing a wetsuit than otherwise.
The last time I wore a wetsuit in cold water, I realized that it made my feet extra cold because I get lazy with a wetsuit. I don't kick much. So my feet just got really cold. And then afterwards, trying to get out of it, it took so much effort to get out of the thing and get dry that it's easier for me to just deal with the cold water.
Yeah, well, that's
my swim time by at least 15 minutes or 20 minutes if I don't have to deal with putting it on, taking it off.
After a few minutes of just like breaststroke, then I can actually put my face in the water, and then after about like 15 minutes, I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. I mean, literally, but
it takes a while.
Yeah. So our topic today was favorite feed. Do you guys have a favorite feed?
Favorite feed? I just said
apple juice a lot of the time, I think.
Nice. That's a good one.
I have something called XR Cell, which is a little comes in like a 4-ounce bottle or so.
I have no connection.
And it's you every time I've taken that in any of my swims, I get a second wind, and I don't know why exactly but it seems to it doesn't taste bad. It doesn't taste great, but it's, so it's more like, oh, this is okay. And then I'm feeling better. So that's huge.
Yeah. I just invited everyone back, so they'll be joining back in.
There we go.
You can hear me, Bridget. I can see.
I can hear you. I've got a really lousy connection right now, so I've missed almost everything Diane just said, but I'll catch you on the reruns.
Okay.
We can hear you fine, just so you know.
Hi.
Yeah, you're coming through very clearly.
Hello. All right, everyone just has about 20 seconds before they'll join back in, and then we'll talk to Colleen. Anybody learn any interesting feeds that we learned about?
Just stay away from the hot blue Gatorade.
My coach insisted on feeding me Gatorade, and that this long swim I did last year, it was an 11-miler, not strictly channel rules, so don't, I'm not bragging about it or anything, but
Oh, it was a good effort, Diane. Give yourself credit.
I'm not gonna say I'm not bragging, but it's still a work in progress. But he was I had this other feed, or this other this Hammer Biz. He said that's not enough. You gotta have Gatorade, and so we ran off to the supermarket. He pushed the Gatorade, said, like, I bought a few bottles. He said, that's not enough. Okay, I'm cool. Let's, whatever you want me to get. You're the coach.
All right, Colleen, are you ready to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Colleen. I live in Scotland. I'm from Scotland. A bit about me. Swimming's kind of my life. I work in swimming. I do additional work in swimming, and I also swim. So it kind of is, everything I do is linked to swimming, which sometimes becomes a bit too much, but it is what I enjoy. So yeah, that's probably all you kind of need to is about me. I work with swimming clubs in Scotland as a day job, and I do some coaching and teaching as well as swimming.
Lovely. How did you start swimming?
I started swimming when I was a baby, so I got thrown in from my dad when I was 6 weeks old. I come from a family of swimmers, so my dad and my mum both swam, and my sister's a swimmer as well, so I didn't really have very much of a choice, and I don't actually remember learning to swim. That's all I've ever kind of done.
Wow, that makes it, that's a way to start. I love that though, that's awesome. Where's your favorite place to swim?
My favorite place to swim here, so probably a couple of places. Where I live now, there's a loch 15 minutes from the house, Loch Tay. It's 15 miles long. It's not the warmest place. In the summer it goes up to 12-13 degrees centigrade is the max it goes to, but yeah, it's just a beautiful place to go and swim.
Is that where you swim, like, do a lot of your training swims, or?
Yeah, so that's my main training bit. There's a beach that we could go in and do laps across, especially when the water's colder. Once it gets warmer, you can swim up the shore, and there's kind of a 10k loop that you can do to do training. Sometimes my dad just comes out in a boat and we just go up for a couple of hours, turn around and come back. Other local spots, there's a river, the big river that comes through the village I stay in. Further down, there's a bit that you could go and swim. So my mum used to just go and sit and do her knitting on the bench, and I swam underneath her at the river and just don't move for a couple of hours. And then when I first started swimming outside as a kid in Dundee, there was a harbour where we used to train and do woods across the harbour as kids as our training. So that's kind of where all my training has been around.
When did you start swimming marathons?
I started swimming outside at 7 years old. I did my first race, which was a mile race. And then my first longer swim was when I was 14. I did a 17k race in Ireland, and it kind of just grew from there. Yeah, so that was probably the longest there. Loch Tay's 15 miles. I did that when I was training for the North Channel when I was 18. So I did a few swims building up. I didn't manage the North Channel then. So the following year I did Tui Windermere, which is a 22-mile swim, Loch Ness, and a swim in Ireland that hadn't been done before. They were all about 20 miles, so that was probably when I started jumping up the distances.
Why did you start jumping up the distances?
I think I'd done the circuit. I'd been around, so I'd gone from juvenile, which was the under 12 age group, and then through the junior swims, and each distance kind of got bigger. The 17K swim I did in Ireland, I was there because my sister was training for the Channel, and that was her training swim for one of her last swims before she went to the English Channel. And they had a spare kayaker, so as I say, it was 14. And they said, "Oh, do you swim?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And they're like, "Oh, do you fancy swimming tomorrow? You could swim to halfway and get out." And I'm like, "Right, that's fine," because I had only swam 5 miles before then. So I got told, as soon as you see a building, that's you at halfway, you can get out. And I was like, perfect. But I only breathe to my right, and the halfway point is on your left. So I saw a big building, got really excited and was like, "Can I get out now?" And got told I had like 2-3 miles to the end, and no, I had to stay until I got to the end. So that was probably where I kind of started falling in love with the longer swims. And I also think everybody knew me as Shannon's little sister. So my sister, who's also called Shannon, she swam national level at open water and did long swims. So I was kind of taken to her swim, so I just swam. And then I was kind of known as, Shannon's little sister. So when are you going to do this? Because Shannon's done it. So I was always like, well, I'm going to do one up on what she's done. So it's kind of probably grown from there.
That's lovely. Well, maybe not. It feels like a lot of peer pressure, a lot of family pressure.
I don't think it came from the family. I think it came from everybody within swimming rather than the family. And I don't deal with pressure well, so the way of dealing with it is to show that I was better than she was. And it was probably not fair on her. But yeah, everybody in the sport were always like, "Oh yeah, when are you going to do that?" Because Shannon's done. My family have never put pressure on. They've just supported me completely in everything I've done.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. How do you describe the feeling of completing a marathon swim?
It depends on the swim. Sometimes relief that is done. Sometimes it's a 2-3 days before it's or a week, 2 weeks before it actually sinks in what you've actually done. Sometimes it's annoying because you're having a really good swim, you switched off and you're in your happy place, and then all of a sudden it's over and it's like, "Oh, it's done." So yeah, I think it depends on the swim, depends how I feel at the end of it.
That's fair. Let's see. What is your favorite event or swim that you've done? That was a long time ago. I did all the events. Over recent years, I've done less and less events. I've swam, for the last 20 to 30 years, open water. Recently, Scar's probably the one that stands out. So my two probably favourite events overall throughout the whole time I've swam is probably Scar and Loch Ness in Ireland. Scar is amazing. Like, I met Mark and a few others in the room, Molly and stuff, at Scar, and I did Catalina the year before, and Becky, who was on my boat, had talked me into or encouraged me to go to Scar, and I've been back and done it again since then. And I just think just the way everybody helps each other out, just as a bit of a road trip, it's not so serious. The events in Scotland, it's all about performance, it's all about speed, it's all about the fast guys. Most Irish swims are wetsuit compulsory because of the rules. So for me, Scar was a breath of fresh air and kind of motivated me to get back into it, because a lot of the stuff I do is solo swims. Most of the stuff now I do is all solo, and Scar's just quite nice because it just makes you feel like you belong somewhere, whereas I'm kind of looked at like a freak half the time, the stuff that I do, because there isn't many of us here do what I do. So yeah, so I'd say Scar. And Loch Ness in Ireland, as I say, it was my first long swim. I've done that swim 14, 15 times now, and yeah, it's just a lovely swim. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear you mention Scar, just because it really is such a fun, like you're with your people, right? And everyone's there doing it. I'd recommend Kingdom Swim Week too. It's another like super low key, but not as much distance, a little bit warmer. But anyway, that's another place to go. But glad to hear you mention that. What is the swim that you're most proud of that you've done?
There's probably a couple that stand out. I probably couldn't say one. From the early years, I'd say Loch Ness. I did Loch Ness when I was 19. It was the first swim that I stood at the end and said I didn't want to do it. I said to my mum the night before, I'm not sure I can do this. And my mum was like, well, you could go and tell. So my mum and dad, those in the room that know me, know that they travel the world with me. They're always by my side. My dad is always on my boat. Loch Ness, he rode the whole Loch Ness with me at the side. So they were with me. And then there's another guy called Ian Reid who was at Loch Ness as well. My mum said, well, you're the one to tell Ian Reid you're not swimming. I'm not telling him. So the next morning there was a conversation and Ian just went, well, we didn't come up here for you not to even try. And someone in my head said he didn't think I could make it. So I decided that's it. I was not getting out of that swim. I was going to do Loch Ness. 3 miles from the end is Uckert Castle. It's a big tourist ruined castle. And I was suffering badly with a cold. I decided in my head that I wouldn't speak on my next feed because they would understand how cold I was because my teeth were chattering by this point. So in my head, I stupidly was like, right, I'll not speak. I'll have my feed. I'll carry on swimming and they won't pull me out. Our spare rescue boat was going away at the castle, so I knew that that was a critical point. My crew had a conversation. If I didn't speak, they were pulling me out because it was too cold. So the moral of this story is always be honest with your crew. So I took my feed thinking I was being smart and then carried on swimming. And then they started to go, well, is she too cold? Is she not? I'll not bore you with the rest of the story. But at the end, the last 200 meters took me 40 minutes to swim because it was that cold. So I think out of my career, Loch Ness taught me a lot. I need to be honest with my crew. I need to tell them everything and they need to understand how much I'm suffering. But I also learned how to deal with your demons, how to suffer. And how you can just keep on going if you believe in yourself. My mum still says to this day, that's the worst day I've come out of any swim. So from the early days, Loch Ness stands out. And then from more modern times is probably the Minch swim 2 years ago. So the Minch there's the north and the south. The south has been swum before with a couple of swimmers in wetsuits, but nobody's done it skins. It's from one of the Western Isles to the mainland. I'd done one from the Pentland Firth to Orkney to the mainland a couple of years ago, but it's a shorter swim, but the tides are horrendous. So over the years, I've been looking at the Minch, but everybody said it wasn't doable because of the temperatures and the distance and the tides. I really did it. And then there was a few of us started to look at it. So 3 of us set off 2 years ago to be the first people to swim the Minch. So to give a little perspective, when I jumped in, the first thing I saw was just jellyfish. It was just jellyfish everywhere. The water temperature was 9 degrees centigrade. I don't know what that is Fahrenheit. It's quite cold.
Yeah.
48.
Yeah.
48. So it was 9 at the start. Thank you. So it was that at the start. It went up to 14 in the middle and it dropped back down to 10 at the end. It was a 27-mile swim. I didn't move for the last 5 miles. So a lot of years ago, I learned the hard way in the English Channel is never look up and never look behind you, and then you don't know where you are. And I think that really hit home during that swim because I got stuck in the tides to get to the finish. And the problem with the finish was we were wanting to be the first people to swim the North Minch, and we were sitting on the boundary of the North and the South Minch. So where I had to finish was north of a lighthouse, and we were sitting in line with the lighthouse. So we're fighting the tide. So I took 5.5 hours to swim the last 1.5 miles because of the tides. Everybody else on the boat were like, what's going to happen? How is she keeping on going? I was oblivious. I didn't even know that I was that close because I never look up. So I always just look to the side, take my feeds from a kayaker, speak to the boat if I need to, and carry on swimming. So I was oblivious. Everybody else was suffering more than I was suffering. But that was the reason why, because I don't look up. My kayaker had never been with a swimmer before. He's now a really good friend. He paddled the whole 1846, so nearly 19 hours. Brian was with me. And he was getting really worried at feeds because I was swimming backwards. I was swimming the wrong direction. But the wind was catching his boat. So he thought I was looking up, but I was just looking at him, taking my feeds, and then swimming off in the direction his boat was in. So I ended up swimming behind and stuff as well. But that swim, yeah, it was an interesting one. Jellyfish right the way through, cold, windy, wavy, but yeah, it's definitely my favourite swim, and I would go back tomorrow if I was asked. North Channel's probably similar as well, and yeah, I would go back tomorrow if I got an opportunity. There's just something magical about those longer, tougher swims, especially the ones that you're first, because nobody knows whether it's doable or not. One of the guys I swam with that day got lost by his crew. I don't really know how, and we ended up having to go to the Coast Guard because it was pitch black and we lost him, and that kind of made that swim harder. I'd finished by that point, but at the end, for recovery and stuff, it was a bit strange. But Colin went back and swam it last year with a wetsuit, but he said it was easier because they knew it was done. So I think the longer, tougher swims, or the ones that people haven't done before, there's something that appeals to me about them.
That's amazing. I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. Do you think that you're a process or an outcome person?
I think my mum has made me a process person. I think if I was true to myself, I'd probably be outcome. I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to my swims. Everything else in my life's not. My swimming, I am. And Rennie, who kayaked for me in Scar the first year, and well, Blake, the second time I did Scar, they laughed because I had a laminated card with all my feeds on it attached to my feed bag, and everything has to be like, yeah. So I've got all my bottles, they're color coded because in hotter water I do change my feed slightly and have an isotonic every third or fourth feed with my jelly babies, which are like really nice little sweets. So I have my bottles color coded and a card to tick off my feeds. So I would say for that kind of stuff, from a swimming, everything's a process, but then other things I'm just like, screw it, let's just go and try it and see what happens. So I think it is about getting the balance of the two. Once I'm in the water, I'm very much, I just need to swim, that's my job. Everybody else deals with the processes, deals with everything that's going on. My job is just to put my arms around, but beforehand it's very much a process.
Oh, that's great. How do you adapt to changing conditions?
I think I think because I've been swimming so many years, and I think because I've grown up swimming outside, I just naturally change my stroke without actually thinking about it. I think the biggest change for me years ago was when I went to the North Channel, the first attempt when I was 18. That was the second time I'd swam in the sea. I'd done freshwater up until then. Quite a few years later, I went to Jersey in the Channel Islands to do a round island swim, and Sally Minty Gravitt laughed because she was like, why are you kicking out the water? But it was just because my body position was so wrong, because I'm that used to fresh water. And whereas now I've swam in the sea a lot more, I just changed my body position without thinking about it. My legs dropped down. So waves, I think I have a tendency to try and almost swim, because people keep on asking me and I'm like, I don't know what I do. So I've been concentrating when I'm swimming to try and work out what I do. And I think when it gets wavy, swimming into them, I almost try and swim downhill and push my shoulders down. And then when I'm swimming with them, I kind of lift my shoulders slightly. But I think too many swimmers just go out and train in good days. You need to go and train in those horrific conditions as well as the good conditions, so that when you're on a big swim, it doesn't matter what conditions come at you, you're fine with it and you just keep going.
That's good advice. Thank you. How about hard situations? How do you deal with hard situations?
I think I deal with them very differently now than when I was younger. When I was younger, I got really abusive to my poor dad on my boat and called him all the names of the day and blamed him for everything and shouted abuse at him. But the deal was, once we came back out of the water, he was okay and it was just back to normal. So my way of dealing with when I was younger was to explode. Now, I think it's about breaking things down. So even on the Minch swim, my kayaker laughed at me because at halfway, Brian said, oh, you've reached halfway. And I'm like, yes, the top of the hill is downhill all the way. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, halfway is the top of the mountain, so it's all downhill. So even when, in my wrong head, when you're finding things difficult as the swim goes on, you just remember you're swimming downhill, so it's easier. When I did Catalina, I've had my shoulder reconstructed and it was hurting, and Tom Hecker was my kayaker, and I asked him how far to go, and he said, you get there when you get there, and the only way you're going to get there is one arm at a time. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I swam away puzzled, whereas now, like the Minch swim, when it got hard, my thinking is it's almost like you're swimming one arm at a time is the only way you're going to get there, but it's reeling the finish in. So with every arm pull, you're getting closer to the finish. And then when things really get hard, I just swim feed to feed. So every feed is a new swim. So swim to the next feed bottle, swim to the next feed bottle. When it's not so bad, I swim to my yellow bottle and my treats. If it's bad, it's just swim bottle to bottle. So kind of just try and break swims down.
That's amazing. That's wonderful advice. I appreciate that. I have a thought that escaped me. What about this, like the shelter in place, like lockdown, whatever they're calling it in Scotland? How are you handling that situation?
It's probably the longest I've gone without swimming. For as long as, probably since I got my shoulder reconstructed 20 years ago. So we're allowed out to walk or cycle or to run for an hour a day. This week we're allowed out more than once, whereas before we're just allowed out once. We're not allowed to swim. England are now allowed to swim open water, but in Scotland we're still not been able to do anything. So it's been a bit challenging for me. I'm walking down to the swimming every day, walking along the river trying to find any sneaky spots I could go in. But yeah, it is what it is, and hopefully the other end of it will be able to get back out into the water.
What's the worst part for you about the situation?
I think it's not seeing family and friends. I live on my own, so yeah, it's not actually seeing people, because yeah, we're allowed out that hour a day and that's kind of it. And I am really close to my parents. They, as I say, they're on all my swims. They go everywhere with me. So yeah, it's probably just not seeing family and actually being able to give them a hug.
Yeah, I miss the hugs. That was my worst. Like when that set in the beginning, I was just like, what? I'm not gonna be able to hug people? I'm a hugger. How do you keep going? What motivates you to keep going?
I think it's about the challenge, and it's about pushing those boundaries where people, I love it when people say you can't do something and you almost give them two fingers and show them that you can. And it's probably that's where I am. So after the Minch, it's probably the closest I've come to retiring, and I was all for stopping. And my kayaker said, but that's, you swim, that's what you do. And I'm like, yeah, but I could find something else to do. He's like, no, but you swim. So last year, instead of doing any big swims, my coach, although my name's Colleen, my coach and my family call me Call. So there's an island called the Isle of Call in Scotland. So Brian suggested that we just went and, for fun, tried to swim around the Isle of Call over a few days, not in one go. The plan was to see if you could do it in one go, because he said, we'll swim around the Isle of Call. And I was like, in one go? And he's like, no, in 4 or 5 days. And I'm like, no, but can we do it in one go? And he's like, well, because the tides, I don't know. Let's go and plan it first. I was like, right, okay. So the idea of someone going to do something short and fun had never really entered my head, because I've always done long stuff. So last summer, I did the Corryvreckan whirlpool, which is one of the largest whirlpools in the world, but it's slack tide, you could swim across it. So I did that with a group, and I did lots of short fun stuff, which has kind of just made me more determined to go back to doing long stuff again. And I think, yeah, we've got a few things we're looking at, probably won't happen this year now, but it's just finding new challenges.
That's wonderful. What advice would you give to an aspiring marathon swimmer?
Have fun. If it's not fun, it's not for you. And it's about challenging yourself, being realistic with the challenges. Some of mine probably aren't that realistic, but you think, you need to just go in thinking you can do it, and making sure, my mum used to say, make sure you've got all your monkeys off your back. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So when my sister went to the channel, she swam in the dark before she went to the channel. It's making sure that you could do as many things as you can before you do it. So when I swam the Minch, I had all my feeds. We knew jellyfish were going to be an issue because somebody ended up in hospital trying it a few days before us. So I ended up putting diaper cream all over myself in a thick layer in the hope that it would maybe protect us from jellyfish for a wee while. But it's just doing things that makes it easier in your head. So everybody's head's differently. But if you can knock off as many things that challenges you may reach in an event, then if you could knock so many of them off beforehand, so when you go in, you know all your job is to do is swim and have fun, then it makes life just so much easier.
Yeah, good advice. Do you have a little known secret about yourself that you'd be willing to tell us?
Wow, what is there? I don't really. I am kind of an open book. I don't really shout about my swims. I just kind of like to just turn up and go. I don't deal with pressure at all. So one of the things with Scar, the first year, even the second year, I freaked out about was slightly was everybody knows that I'm a North Channel swimmer. So when I met Blake, who's become a really good friend who kayaked for me last year, the last time I was at Scar, Blake sent me a message going, "Oh my God, I've just found out who you are. Like, you've done this, you're amazing." And I don't deal with that. And I really struggled the first couple of swims at Scar because I put too much pressure on myself by other people's expectations. And I actually had to say to Blake, stop. But it was really nice what he was doing. And I can understand why people say things and do stuff. But that's the one thing I can't actually deal with. So that's probably, yeah.
I hear you. Just as a side note to the others here, I think Blake was one of the people that was recommended to be interviewed, but he wasn't able to come today, so he had to go back to work. So he got Colleen to come in his place, which has been lovely, lovely chatting with you. Can you recommend someone else for us to chat with at our little marathon swim stories?
I was thinking about who to ask if you're looking for a Scottish or a British swimmer. Morag Hughes is quite an interesting swimmer who started, she's done the channel, she's done a few big swims, she just goes and does her own thing, but nobody knows who she is. Or Hippo, Mark will know Hippo, Graham Slachter, who is a South African swimmer based outside London. Hippo is hilarious and has done some amazing swims as well. And his wife, Audra, is Slim Hippo, and he travels around all his swims with a little blue hippo, which goes on his kayak and all swims with him, hence why he's known as Hippo. So yeah, probably Graham.
All right, I appreciate those recommendations. Does anybody have any questions?
Harry Hippo is in one of my pictures.
Cool. Any questions for Colleen this morning or afternoon for her?
Not a question, but a comment. I'm so impressed that you did something like 17K at 14 years old. I was so impressed by that, and the things that you've gone through, and the swimming in the cold temperature. That would be one thing. What advice would you have for people acclimating to cold?
I think it's about building up. So when I first moved to where I live now in the Loch, I was like, oh, I need to get a wetsuit. The Loch's too cold. But over the years, I've got used to it and my body's acclimatized to it. And I think sometimes we think we're cold when we're actually not cold. Jamie will probably, I don't know if she'll back me up on this, but it's in the cold, it is sometimes a mind game rather than a physical game. And it's about knowing your own limits, but actually knowing when to push those limits as well. And sometimes I go in 5-10 minutes and think, no, this is not my day for being in here. And I'll get out. 2 days later, I'll go in and do 2 hours, no problem. And it's about knowing yourself and knowing yourself that day. On big swims, you don't have a choice. That's your job, you're suffering, and it's tough. But on training swims or building up to it, it is about gradual acclimatization and getting your mind used to actually being cold and just accepting you're going to be cold and that's just how it is. But yeah, I think it's just about slow acclimatization. And then if it's during an event, you just have to go in that mindset that it's tough luck.
I agree, Colleen. Great answer.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I was going to ask about the cold. I was supposed to do Loch Ness this year, but that'll be hopefully 2021. So I'll have to come catch up with you before then, Colleen.
Yeah, no problem. The thing with Loch Ness is not just the cold, it's black. Because the loch's so dark, it's like, it's so clean. Like you can see your hands, you can see your feet treading water, but it's the colour of treacle when you're actually swimming. And it's just because it's so, it freaks a lot of people out, but there's something nice and peaceful about it as well.
Colleen, I'm curious, what is your special sweet in your that you look forward to in your yellow bottle?
So my yellow bottles, my electrolyte feeds, and my sweets that go with it are called jelly babies. Mark said he'd had them, he didn't like them. I don't know if anybody else has had them in group. The last time I was at Scar, I caused total fights because everybody was stealing my jelly babies. I have them in little boxes. As soon as they get wet, they go slimy. But they're like almost like gel content, like in center, but they're a little bit soda. They're fruit flavored. Yeah, they're really sweet, but quite nice. But if I'm in freshwater, I quite like Jaffa cakes as well, which is like a biscuit that's a cake base with orange jelly and chocolate on the top.
Yum. Fun. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, Colleen. I'm going to do a quick screenshot if anybody wants to wave or smile. All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys next week. I think we have Elizabeth Almond and I don't remember the other person, but I'll post it. Thanks. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Colleen.
Thank you for asking me.
It's great to get international conversations. Love it.